Uh-huh. Yep. I'm back. Sorry you had to put up with him by himself, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm back. Welcome to Brewing Controversy.
You should be. Why? How could you do that to people who watch this show? I don't understand, Lucas. Why? Do you not like our viewers?
I gotta subject them to a little test of will once in a while. Brian's here. Hi, Brian. Heidi ho. If you're here, feel free to say hello. This is Brewing Controversy. I'm Lucas. This is David. And we represent Beer City and Music City and all the smart-ass political commentators in the world channeled through our witty, beer-fueled banter. And this is the St. Patrick's Day episode. In other words, a day early with a little bit of festivity. And we're gonna flip the script a little tonight. We're going to do nothing but a happy hour with 4 primary topics. And Olivia's here. Hi, Olivia. We had a perfectly nice time with David, and you did actually.
Oh, you're such a sweet liar, Olivia.
I actually really enjoyed a lot of that, David, and you did a great job, to be honest with you. So anyway, we're here. It's time for you to pull hair off of your stein, apparently.
Well, all right. So this is one of the things you learn about being a restaurant manager is that a good portion of the time you end up being a dishwasher. And I had to run into work earlier today for a minute, and I had to get some stuff. And so there's queso. So there's some queso kind of stuck up under my fingernail right there, and
that's funny.
Caught
stuff. It looked like you were plucking a hair.
I was plucking a hair. The hair got stuck.
It was stuck in the queso
that was underneath my fingernail.
Okay. All right. I'm going to walk right past all the wide open doors for the curly hair and the dick cheese jokes.
Right. Hey, anyway, I don't walk the line that often, so.
It's been a couple weeks since we've been on together. And I understand the South is still going through Sybil-like manic weather flip-floppies. Is that the case?
Yeah, right. So it oscillates between being 70 degrees during the day and below freezing at night.
That's nice. That's great.
And for those of you who don't know, in the South, we also know to start watching around, because the thing is, when the temperature starts flipping like that, it starts doing this in the sky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
swirly clouds bad.
Yeah, swirly cloud is bad. I mean, luckily in the city it doesn't get too bad. We rarely get touchdowns inside the city.
Except that one time, right at the beginning of COVID, and that other one time in the late 90s.
Yep. Yeah, when I was a little kid, and we had the one go through downtown. No, I mean, no, it's one of those things where you have to start paying attention. We all got our teeth kicked in a few weeks ago from just not even like a proper like tornado, just super high straight winds that knocked everything down. A friend of mine, they had a tree knock down the utility pole in front of their house. So they had no power, but they also couldn't get out of their driveway, both because of live electrical lines and tree. And they had to stay that way for 6 days.
You know what? Trump's got a cure for that.
Oh, God.
Apparently he's promising flying cars now. So, there you go.
Yeah.
And of course, it fits the fantasy that Trumpers will ever be able to afford said flying car if they just keep on.
They're not going to have to afford it. He's going to give it to them, don't you know?
Oh, yeah, right.
Give them a flying car.
Well, Brian is going to drive it home to all of us. 81 tomorrow and lows in 60s. This time next week, I'll be on a train for California, and I am supposedly to expect 68 to 70 degree daytime weather. Should be really nice. Some chilly-ish at night, but probably not really chilly based on my recent experience. At this point, I'm just hoping that, there aren't very many mudslides and shit. So we'll see. My LA tourism list is up to 75 or so items, but a lot of that stuff is right next to each other. And some of it is like really quick stuff like the Tupac mural. Like you're not going to spend an hour at the Tupac mural. If you do, you're either going to get into some trouble or you're going to start some trouble perhaps. But anyway.
No, just don't be like Nashville tourists in front of the wings all the time.
Oh God. No,
Oh,
I don't
God,
even think I would take a picture of myself with it. I might take a selfie, but I just want to see some cool stuff. So I have like a whole hip hop tourism list and a whole food tourism list. I haven't made the beer tourism list. I have the lists pulled up to like look at all the breweries. And then of course all the typical touristy things like, going and standing outside various studio gates going, woo, and then moving on. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. And a lot of people know Rob, who frequents the show. I'm going to go out and visit with Rob in Hawthorne, and I'm going to be staying in Long Beach. I'm looking forward to that. It should be a really cool spot to spend 10 days. So, going to be a lot of fun. You'll have some solo David in that time frame. I think. No, actually, you won't have solo David. You'll have one solo David next week while I'm on the train. The week after that, we're working on putting together my end of the show being live from a brewery somewhere in California, probably with Rob in tow, and have a lot of fun with that. So it'll be good stuff.
Yay!
Anyway, it is it's the St. Paddy's Day special for us, which means we're going to do things a little bit differently. But before we can do the differently things, we have to talk about the beer because we got to have some beer to drink with all these heavy ass topics. So we're going to get a little start early on beer reviews and beer chit chat. So it's time for What You Drinking. Who wants to go first?
You go first because I have to open mine.
Okay, I'll go first. So this is a really fun piece of new material for me. This is, and I actually just realized, yeah, David, you might have been right about what you told me earlier. I don't think that it's on there, so that's neat. But we don't typically include this data. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to be really super organized and sloppy and do some shit live. There we go. So I've got some new Dragon's Milk to talk about, and I'm going to break out my existing Dragon's Milk bottle opener that won't focus, with its now outdated logo, and pop open this particular brew. So I'm going to do tonight, since it's the closest to an appropriate thematic beer, Dragon's Milk Crimson Keep. Now, this is part of some new stuff going on at New Holland with the Dragon's Milk line. I'm going to zoom myself in a little bit and do the bottle thing. So this is Crimson Keep. Also, this is the new branding for Dragon's Milk, which I like mostly. The thing, and here's the thing. Part of it is I'm just being old about accepting change. So something's changing and it's really close to me. So I'm like, eh? The dragon is now more spiky. Focus. All right. So the dragon is spiky, and now the logo is a different type that I'm not crazy about. This is the only thing I don't like is this type, because I think
that gothic.
It's like a little too D&D, though. Also, that's part of the goal, and that's part of the reason a lot of people like it. But down here, the name of the beer, that's kind of more like the old logo type, which was this kind of thing, this Dragon's Milk. So I like the new branding overall. There have been some really nice treatments done with packaging and all that stuff. But what they did, some people may be familiar with the Solera. I think I drank the Solera on the show at some point. That was the Foder-aged, barrel-aged ale, or the Foder-aged ale. So they kind of, like, when I first tried this was at the Beer Fest here. And I asked the guy in the tent, tell me about this, because it's, it's new. and I'm very interested. And he said, "Well, you remember the Fodor aged?" I'm like, yeah. He said, "It's like that, but good." I'm like, oh shit. And basically, it was kind of an improvement on that in a way. And what he described to me was that it's going to be very similar to Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale from Lexington Brewing, which is an old fave of mine. And
Yeah.
I think you've liked that one pretty well, haven't you?
Yeah.
So he said it's kind of like that, but premium, way better. Like, oh, okay, this is sounding good. So here she is. It's hard to tell how red, like from my side, I get to see the light through it, but it's beautiful, super red. It's running the standard kind of range. 11% is pretty much the norm for the Dragon's Milk line, and it's just so good. Now, the first time I had it out of a keg at the festival. Second was out of the draft at the tap room. So this is the first bottled experience I've had on it. I'm interested to see if it stands up. That's almost identical to the tap experience. And I don't know how to put my finger on why it just... The first time I ever had the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale, I was like, whoa, this is cool. And that's probably when I first started thinking about the barrel-aged world. But I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was pretty young. I didn't know what the hell it really was. I just knew I really liked the character of the beer. This basically is like everything I've ever thought about that I like about the character of that beer, notched up multiple levels. So it's a really good alternative to people that don't want to get into the stout territory, but still want to have the bourbon or the barrel age thing. It is classified as Imperial Double Red. So, being red, I thought it would fit in with our theme today. I did bring a little show and tell. I want to point out, yeah, she's right. Olivia says they're hitting the vibe 100%, and that is absolutely true. This new vibe goes well with the D20 that you can buy with a little dragon for the number 1. It's really cute. Of course, now it's wrong dragon. There's going to be a minute. There's going to be a lot of merch on sale. I'm waiting on the clearance. I'm going to have to go get me a bunch of OG dragons. So they're doing the new lineup now, and I'm going to pull that up because, I'm a nerd and I brought visual aids. So there's your Crimson Keep. So, we've had various breeds of black dragons over the years. And of course, the Dragon's Milk White has given a white dragon alternative to people. And then now there's Tales of Gold in the mix. So the whole lineup actually is going to look like this going forward. So you got your basic Dragon's Milk, which we're all familiar with, but now it's going to have a really cool new vibe. Also, they've raised the cardboard profile higher on these packages, which I think is really kind of neat. They had reasons. They were a lot of it was distinction and marketing and artist reasons. I approve of all those reasons. I think they've done a good job doing that. So there's Tales of Gold, so you can ride a little gold dragon there. And then the Crimson Keep here, and then coming out this weekend at the barrel, I forgot what they're calling it. Barrel, it's not Barrel Bash. Anyway, this weekend they're doing a drop of the new triple mash combined with the 4 drops of different flavors of their why can't I think today? Dragon's Milk. I'm going to do an emergency web search. It is the Origin Toasted Barrel. I was trying to find the list of flavors. Anyway, 4 flavors. Oh, here they are. Yay! The Wood Shop, Take Me Out to the Ball Game, Stay Classy, and Cherry Turnover. So they've dropped a few more of their liquor brand, the Dragon's Milk Origin Small Batch Bourbon. So this Saturday, it's going to be on if you're into barrel when it comes to New Holland and Dragon's Milk. So I dig it. I think it's cool. I would love to see them, let's not do a green dragon, because that would mean we'd had to do that stupid bro shit and have green beer. But I would be interested to see, well, they could do a green dragon if they did some twist on an IPA, and just call it a green thing, but not, make it green. So I'm digging where this is going. I think at first I was like, I don't know. I like my dark colored Dragon's Milk. But when I really got into it and started looking at it and thinking it through, it made sense. And it was kind of nice that it was a little bit of a preview, because we had Tales of Gold before. They made it part of the Dragon's Milk line, but it was already tested out in another series that they did. So it's kind of interesting to see these things experimented with and then come back around and become a real mainstay thing. So that is my journey into what's going on with the New Holland Dragon's Milk stuff. Of course, you can see there it's not a huge number of ratings because it just came out, 11%, so it stands right there with the rest of the line. Rating pretty high. People are loving it. If you gave me the choice between this and a Kentucky bourbon ale, I would side with this every time. It's just got a lot more oomph, and it's not just the alcohol. It's like every aspect of it is just more pronounced and more special. Not that there's no reason to ever have a Kentucky bourbon barrel ale. They're very good too, but this takes that kind of experience if you're looking for a comparison and really notches it up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're honest, KBB is a very middle of the road sort of beer. It's not, and the thing is, they do that on purpose. It's not overly aggressive in any vein. It's not overly malty. It's not super. It definitely gives you the flavor of the bourbon, but takes a lot of the bite out of the bourbon.
Yeah,
in a good way, and it's a very smooth, even keeled beer. So I think for us being beer nerds, like every KBB is good, but it's not going to get us super excited about anything.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, it typically in a lot of not breweries, in a lot of bars or tap rooms that were serving multiple things, I would get that if it was available, because it was one of the more beefy, flavorful options.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't necessarily jump out at me, in every respect, which I think that's to be expected in this case, because you're dealing with something that's more of a commoditized situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's good shit. I'm really happy with it, and I'm really interested to see where they go with this. So Crimson Keep, give it a try. Good stuff. What you got there?
I have McEwen's Scotch Ale. I actually tried to save a little bit of my haul from Reds for this month. This was one of the ones. There were some other ones. There were some Boddingtons. There were some Smithwicks. I'm like, that's all tried.
Wait, what did you say?
Done.
What was that word?
Smithwicks.
Yes. What?
Boddingtons.
No. You had it. You just didn't do it right. You mean Smittix? Get with the program. I only made the mistake of saying Smithwicks once and was made fun of by an entire bar.
That's fair.
Not like high key. There were several people like this guy, and the bartender's like Smittix. Like, oh, okie dokie. Yeah, learned that one long ago.
I'll be honest, I did not know that one. But I mean, this one was a little bit. I'm like, okay, this one's a little bit different. Apparently, however, not as unique as I thought it was, because it's got over 20,000 ratings.
Damn.
So people have been drinking this. It's pretty sweet for a Scotch ale. So this is classified also as a wee heavy. And for those who know, wee heavies normally have a big honey flavor. Bellhaven did a wee heavy for a long time. That was heavy on the honey. This is not as heavy. This has got definitely a malty note to it. And it's got a big, like it's got a noticeable Scotch nose. And it's got a little bit of that Scotch roastiness on the front. And it has a little hint of it in the back of that sort of just is, that little bit of a astringent nature of Scotch alcohol. I mean, this is definitely something that, like, if I was at a bar and I saw this, I would definitely feel very good about picking this up and having this as a beer. It's not heavy at all. It's not punching me at all. It moves pretty well through that glass. It's not very stouty, even though it's dark. It's actually not even that dark. It's definitely translucent as opposed to a lot of Scotch ales that I've had. So it's a little bit on the lighter side. I'm liking this. Is it necessarily anything that I'm going to immediately write home about? But I mean, it's got a lot of good flavors. I don't know. For me, when for Scotch ales, I like it when, like, Oscar Blues makes their Old Chub, which is much heavier on the Scotch, which is typically what I'm actually looking for. I often, for those of you who watch the show, I like to ride on Lucas a little bit about his barrel aged obsession. But for Scotch ale, I'm looking for that, like, I'm really looking for that Scotch bite. Like bourbon and whiskey barrel aged stuff, I'm like, okay, just, give me a little bit of the smokiness, give me a little bit of this flavor, add a level of evolution and complexity to the beer. For Scotch ales, I want Scotch in beer form. Damn it. And this gets close. I mean,
okay.
It's again, I like it. I would definitely give it a solid 3.5. I don't know if I'm going to go to 3.7, but I would definitely give it a 3.5 solid rating. I mean, it's good for what it is. I will say this: when I was at Cezanne's a couple of weeks ago, and I feel so sad that I won't be able to put their beer on tap going forward. But they had an amazing Scotch ale. I mean, like, again, I still need to go back there and, like, get some growlers and bring it on the show because all of it's so delicious. And it's such a unique outfit. But they had a very good Scotch ale that was closer to that. Oh, you gave me Scotch in beer form. Thank you. This makes me happy.
I think there's something to be said for not having it always be too heavy. I don't think that's a bad thing. There needs to be a variety.
No. Like, and again, Scotch ale shouldn't be super heavy. It should just, like, my thing is, and this comes pretty close to, like, what I want from a Scotch ale, which is it gives you a little bit of the flavor of the Scotch. I think it just backs off too soon. That's my only issue with it.
Okay, I can see that.
I want it to be angrier about it. I want it. I want it to kill English. Okay.
Holy shit! By the way, the event this weekend I was desperately trying to remember, and I forgot to clarify, it was Day of the Dragon is Saturday at the New Holland Brew Pubs. So I think between us, we've got a pretty good, robust drinkage going on, and I'm really happy to see that. And of course, a lot of people know this. We use the data from Untappd.com to look all this stuff up. So if you ever wonder, like, where the hell does this information come from, that's the spot, and it's a pretty handy lookup. I years ago jumped on the app and started checking in beers and stuff, and I was like last week years old when I learned that if you check in repeatedly, even though you've already had the beer, it checks you into the location, and then you can look at the screen if they're an untapped location and see other people that you might know who have also checked in the location. So now I have a whole different set. Like, I used to look at it and go, I've already rated that, and not check it in. Now I really want to check them in so I can look on the screen and be like, do I know any of those people? So yeah, I learned something new. Brian said, great Scotch makes English your second language. This is fair.
Yep.
Anyway, good stuff. I'm glad that we
need
could.
to give Brian his moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad we could get on the theme. Now it's time for the other side of the
other green leaf
recreational spread. So Brian always brings us a little input from what he's getting into. Back on the aptly named Half Day Kush. It's great for extreme relaxation and leaves a lot of keef behind when ground. It's about 23.4%, but spike it with sativa keef to raise those levels. Great taste, less filling. What appointment. And a little input here from Olivia. Cracking open the last of the Holy Donut from Lone Pine. Yeah, that was a good looking can or bottle. I don't remember if it was a can or a bottle. Imperial Stout with donuts, strawberries, and chocolate. Respectable 9%, and it looks like it would be so damn good. Definitely in the beautiful, wonderful dessert fat kid beer category that I tend to gravitate toward. So everybody's got their stuff all around. Good to see. So glad. We're gonna do this new version of the happy hour. So
St. Patrick's Day special.
St. Patrick's Day, 4 topics, little 4-leaf-clover action.
Yeah.
So instead of our normal happy hour at the top that we would do before the beer, we're going to do all of this just as a banter session on 4 topics. So welcome to the St. Paddy's happy hour. And we're going to just go on with this in the show. And I'm going to just randomize the easy one that's the low-hanging fruit out of all of our pain in the ass topics that we've chosen that are very timely American subjects at hand. Let's talk about healthcare. David, I want you to lead this off because you suggested this. David saw my frustration with some medical things and then said that we should talk about this because he had his own gripes. And I have not preemptively explored like we do sometimes. I haven't heard much of his take on this, so I'm letting you lead this off because I want to know, why was it on your brain?
So, I mean, these days it's always on my brain because right now I'm trying to just get. So, for those of you who don't know, I got held at gunpoint, briefly held at hostage about 2 months ago.
It's been that long?
And
yeah, it seems like 2 weeks ago. It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
Right. And well, I mean, for me, it seems like 2 years ago.
Right.
It's.
Yeah. I'm sure my perception of the intervening time is absolutely fucking meaningless in this conversation.
But trying to get my insurance company to and any insurance company to acknowledge my claim has been a nightmare. It literally, I've gone through 2 different reinsurers at this point. And on top of that, I actually still have an older workman's comp claim from a dog bite during work. And that I'm not, the thing is for that, I'm not having to fight insurance. I'm having to fight the healthcare provider because no matter what I tell them, I'm like, it says very clearly on my intake form, workman's comp. And this is the policy number. And this was handed off back to my employer because it was on the job. I was doing my job. I was not drunk or high. Right. And I was working on the patio of a restaurant and I got bit in the ass by a dog.
I don't want to laugh at your pain, but just there's so many options, and bit in the ass is what happened.
It is. It
Not
is what
like
happened.
Your calf or your leg or reaching down to pick something up and nipped on the arm. You got it in the ass, and that's
I did get in the ass. I yelled into the restaurant. Motherfucker bit me in the ass. because I want to clarify. This was not a small dog. This is a 120-pound Saint Bernard that decided that my ass was a problem that needed to be solved with teeth. I also want to clarify, I have a very small ass, so I really don't know. I have been an office worker a significant portion of my life, and so there is not a lot, like it is lithe and small.
It's
muscular.
Not protruding enough to be.
It is not protruding. My milkshake is bringing no one to the yard.
If you've ever had to be on the pre-show when he's arranging the room, I can attest there isn't much to hold up the pants.
That's literally a problem. But no, I mean that company keeps on trying to send me bills for $400, and I'm like, I don't owe you anything. This is workman's comp. You all were paid. You don't get another $400 from me. That's not happening. And if you send me to collections, we're going to have a really big problem because I'm not paying this. And you know, it's incredible how badly, and the source of this, and it's the reason why we have to have workman's comp the way that we do. The reason we have to have insurance companies the way that we do is because no one had there. It's this constant fight of in network, out of network, approved, not approved. We have created the most complicated medical system in the developed world, and it costs us a massive amount of money. You know, it's the constant joke about the American healthcare system is how much money gets poured into it. It is a literal gold mine. There is a reason why, investors around the world want to privatize portions of their country's healthcare system, because they look at America and they're like, good God, you all make money hand over fist. It's literally a license to print money.
Yeah.
To own it, because it is so ridiculously complicated. And then of course you have the grand tradition of, for most of these insurers, denying the first claim outright. Be like, oh, okay, there's court testimony repeatedly of workers saying to the court, yes, our standard policy was to deny all claims.
Yeah. See who bites, see who walks off, you know, who won't press it. I got double angry yesterday, I think. And it was when I made the mistake of watching the episode of Dirty Money on Netflix, which is a fantastic fucking documentary series. And it was the pharmaceutical short episode. And I don't know if you've watched that. I don't know if anybody watching has watched that series. It's a great series.
I don't, because I know I know that, like, I'll literally be throwing shit at walls. That's why I haven't watched it. It's because I'm like, I know what's here.
Yeah.
If you have to describe it to me in a way where I'm sitting down and watching it,
yeah,
I'm gonna lose my shit.
Yeah, it was an examination of the I've already forgotten the name of the company, but the medication, well, the pharmaceutical company that Hillary Clinton made reference to during the election, when the person in the audience talked about their pills going up to 10 grand and shit. And literally the general subject matter was the pharmaceutical industry's ability to just say, let's raise the price. And their ability to kill competition and make sure they're the only source, and then raise the price. And the valuation increases in the market that are driven by that added revenue, but no added innovation and no new drugs. And it's really fucking sick. Brian points out there are thousands of people making money in the insurance industry, just keeping the chaos flowing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, even Nancy Pelosi, has been caught on camera backing these insurance companies because there's literally just that much money being made in America off healthcare. And the problem is that I have with this is that I will be the first to say there are lots of places where private enterprise does better than uh, government at addressing certain things,
Mhm.
namely, principally consumer goods, right? Things that change with people's attitudes and moods on a regular basis.
Yeah,
Consumer
because
goods.
if there's one thing government doesn't do very well or very fast, it's listening to feedback and making things happen.
But one of the things that government does do very well is provide basic services.
Mhm.
Um, roads. Can you imagine if all roads were privatized? How chaotic that would be. This company owns this stretch of road, and so you pay this toll. But now, I mean, and here's the thing: we had this for a moment in U.S. history, and it was with the railroads, right? You had different railroads owning different sections of track, right? Um, you had different railroads who would gauge, which is the width of the track,
Mm.
gauge the track differently. So you had to stop your train, unload the train, put it on a different train, all of this costing you money, right? So it could go on the different gauge track. Um, Even in places where track might be owned by one company, it could, because of how it was funded, you could still have to stop your train and unload unload the train at regular points, right? Uh, if you were wealthy enough, you could just make the train stop for you, right? It used to be a big thing. No, so the joke
I don't
is
know. That still
there's a
sounds
famous
pretty familiar.
there's a famous part of Nashville called Belmead, and it's site of a very famous train accident,
Mm.
um,
Dutchman's
and
Curve.
Dutchman's Curve. But you'll notice that it's the wealthiest part of town, but the train runs through it. Why?
Mm.
Because that used to be the ultimate symbol of wealth. I don't go to the train station to pick up what I want delivered. The train comes to me to deliver what I want. So this very wealthy neighborhood that's been very wealthy for 200 years, the reason the train runs through it is because that used to be the ultimate symbol of wealth. The train delivers to me, not to the station. This is the sort of chaos, and Congress intervened. Congress said, no, 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 no. This has to stop. We're going to regulate and say everyone has to use this the same way, and that is a classic example of government taking something that's generally used by the public and making it sensible and available to everyone.
Yeah.
Healthcare is a lot like that, right? There's no reason for us to have to argue about which insurance company covers which doctors and for what reason and at what prices. This is insanity.
They're not even good at it. They're like
No.
not even good at it. When I went, okay, so I had to work backward because I had my, non-life threatening, vastly inconvenient heart issue arrive in December. And um, I hadn't established any cadence of anything, right? So I started with the emergency room and worked backward through the cardiology clinic. And then I got sick of seeing a blank space for primary care on my online summary. And I decided I should go ahead and do that. And so I went to do that appointment. And no motherfucker in the entire fucking process had any idea if that particular provider was covered. It didn't show up in the online search through my insurance company. It they didn't have anything when I called in. They didn't think it was covered. But the clinic was telling me, yeah, we just signed that contract. We're definitely on your insurance. Well, they don't seem to think so. And so it turns out they were. And I think the gap is because insurance stupidly uses provider names, and this is a system-based clinic like the Vanderbilt clinics in Nashville. And that's how I used to roll. I have no interest in knowing who the fuck my primary care doctor is. I don't give a fuck about that any more than who changes my fucking oil. It's a service. It's in and out. You like weigh me, jab me, fucking physical, whatever. If you've got a medical degree, you know more shit than I do about bodies. So congratulations. Here's a body. Examine it. Great. Write the shit down. See you next year. It's a basic fucking service, and I follow a very European model on that. I don't give a fuck about knowing that. Do I care about knowing and feeling somewhat comfortable with my cardiologist? Yeah. You know, if you got something to do with my nuts, my heart, or my brain, I'm curious. I want to know you. But if you're just going to change
need two of those things,
oil,
right?
Do what?
So you need two of those things, right?
Two of what things? Yes, I like both of those things. No,
we just figured out which one you don't need.
Oh, right. Okay. And so, you know, it's insane that we treat it the way we treat it, and then it's so broken. They didn't know because my appointment was with a nurse practitioner at that particular practice. And apparently those aren't on the list. So I would have had to know what doctor is she under to give that doctor's name at this fucking place I've never fucking been before that I chose 100% based on location. It's 5, maybe 10 minutes from the house downtown, really easy to get in and out of on a main road. Criteria fucking met. And they had an appointment soon. But the other side of that, the knowing and the whole American healthcare versus the world, I'm still pissed that it took 4 months to be able to see the actual cardiologist.
Which is, you know, that's the constant complaint that people, and the irony is that in most cases, the wait times in quote unquote socialized healthcare systems are less than the US.
And the reason is because lie that the right wing slings around is that, oh, you have to wait so long. Well, I waited 4 fucking months. Does it get worse? Well, yeah, it does get worse, but like really, like that's the level of service that we're supposed to be thrilled about with our fucking for-profit bullshit? No.
Well, you know what they actually have to wait for, and this is where they have their problem. So what they actually have to wait for is elective surgeries. Now, I want to clarify: elective surgeries come in a variety of flavors. Quality of life surgeries in single payer systems are usually pretty immediate. Elective surgeries that fall outside of quality of life, say, for instance, plastic surgery, is something that you might have to wait a little bit for.
Boo fucking who.
I also want to point out
nose will have to get fixed later.
Well, why do you have to wait a while for those? Because in a single payer system, those surgeons are put to the use of, we have actual medicine to practice, right? That needs to be addressed. Whereas the immediacy that conservatives want, they're like, well, I'm a millionaire. Of course I go to the front of the line. Oh, wait, in a single payer system, no, you don't.
In a single payer system, the train doesn't stop in your neighborhood.
Bingo.
Yeah. So, you know, the most recent frustration I had was the documentary and the drug stuff, because it's very abundantly clear that pharmaceuticals should probably not be a for-profit industry. Brian's, I had to wait for that enhancement surgery?
Yes. Yes, you do.
Yes, sir, we're not going to be able to install your 38-inch penis for another 8 months. Before the documentary got me riled up yesterday, my existing rage was all based on my experience. And David, I think you probably suggested the topic because I was having all that rage while you were having all of your rage. But, you know, those that know me know that I was not famously, but those that see my personal social media that's not public like this show, I was down after I saw the cardiologist. I finally got to see this fucking guy, and he was in the room for a very short period of time. Hustle bustle, wham bam, thank you, ma'am. He was very quick, and he was cutting me off a lot, and I didn't even realize it because I kind of do that. And so it's hard to recognize your negative traits in other people sometimes. And sometimes it's like really obvious. And I was tuned out. I wasn't getting it. I had Jessie there with me, and she told me on a break when he went out of the room, she's like, I don't like this dude. I said, why? He keeps cutting you off. I don't think he's actually called you by your actual name. He was using Luke. And he's not really listening to you. And I was not in the, like, if I was my normal smart ass witty self, I would have picked up on that, started calling him Han or Chewie. and just little shit like that. But I didn't have, like, I was pushed through so fast. I didn't get a chance to really entertain any questions. It just really felt like a whole lot of nothing after so much waiting. And after being, my insurance is not amazing, but it's by choice. I wanted to suffer the least, and I still suffer to the tune of $72 a week. So, I'm already shelling out all that money. Now it's 60 something if you factor in the fact that the taxes are not, whatever, it's pre-tax if I were paying for it later, whatever. Point is, to me, I'm paying almost $300 a month for insurance, and still I have like a pretty high deductible, pretty high maximum out of pocket. So I run a pretty high balance even with insurance. So I'm looking back at all these bills. I got bills stacked up now, especially the emergency room, which is fucking highway robbery. It's absolutely fucking gouged out the ass, and it's going to be the last fucking thing I pay, if I pay it. And the realities of all that were really fucking disappointing. So I felt really down after that appointment. It's like, God damn, I've come this far. I've done all these things. I've done echocardiograms and treadmill stress tests and started exercising and cut my beer in half. And all of that was like rammed through a quick appointment. Now, I will say this. I connected with the patient relations department, Spectrum Health, now Corewell Health. They're advertising the shit out of that, so I'm now.
No, I'm just like, I'm laughing because it's just like, oh, it's time for a brand change. Just like, we're a IT company.
Yeah. We could do a whole show on me pontificating of the similarities between health and IT brands and pharmaceutical brands. It's insane how much.
Well, it's because so many health companies have actually been bought out by people who made their money in IT.
Probably part of
hedge
it,
funds that made billions and billions in IT, and they're looking for, all right, where's the next jackpot?
What color of logo would you like? Which green or blue will we land on? Yeah.
Right.
So,
at least it wasn't Ascension.
Oh, true. But I talked to their patient relations people, and the lady I got, the lady was super, super nice, and she helped me make contact again with the clinic. And the end of the story was a 1 hour phone call of detailed, calm, reasonable discussion to basically do over on the visit that I had, and everything got settled and it's fine now. But it was just really off-putting and really disappointing. It was when I got home after the appointment that Monday, I spent the whole day down in the dumps. Then Tuesday came, and I woke up angry. I woke up angry because this heart monitor that is itchy as fuck was itchy as fuck. And I woke up angry because I really wasn't asked if I wanted to have this particular span of 2 weeks stuck to my body. And I woke up angry because no one gave me a chance to figure out what it was going to cost me. And all these pissed off points, I was like,
which, by the way, as has been revealed, Congress actually passed an act demanding that hospitals post the prices of all their procedures, of which how many hospitals have complied?
I can tell you the emergency room I visited had no McDonald's menu that I could see. And I don't know where who the fuck is forcing them to do any of that. Olivia says, my least favorite aspect of the whole goddamn system is having the quality of my insurance and cost be so wildly inconsistent and dependent on my job. Yes, indeed.
I
To the
have to say,
point
the
where it's
one
now a
nice
main consideration of my employment decisions. And actually, you know what? I feel you on that because I still pay attention to what's going on in this town as far as like jobs in my field and getting a feel for like what do people make around here for what I do. And I saw a listing recently that said that they were offering 100% health coverage, and I thought,
yeah.
well, fuck, that's a big bargaining chip these days. Before I had all these things to think about, I
Mhm.
never would have noticed that coming across my radar. But when I
Yeah.
saw
Well,
that, I
and
was like, oh, yeah, I think
I,
about that now.
one of the only nice things about being in Nashville is the fact that you know that whatever insurance you have, you should probably receive quality health care because of the number of hospitals and the level of competition among hospital corporations and doctors within the city, because we are the healthcare capital of the world.
I mean, I
HCA.
guess there's competition. I don't know how much they don't all just go smoke cigars together and decide to set
Well,
some
I mean,
baseline
it's definitely a
commonality.
possibility of the monkey see, monkey do syndrome, which we
Mm.
see happening right now in big tech. Of why are we firing people? I don't know. The other guys did it.
Brian
Florida
points
is
out
God's
Florida's
waiting
God's
room.
waiting room. Because if you're not in the hospital, you're gonna be.
I have to say, when I was down there for training, I was shocked by the number. So nobody builds tall in Florida,
I don't know if you
right?
can. Oh, except Miami. Miami builds tall.
Not really, not that tall.
Mm.
Not Nashville
There's
tall,
some
not
big ass
Charlotte
condos
tall,
going on in Miami.
not Charlotte tall, not Nashville tall. But like
Okay.
especially like further up in the uh in the peninsula, no one builds tall, right? No one builds tall around Orlando. No one builds tall around Tampa. No one builds tall in any of those places.
That's that's true.
But the tallest buildings were always doctors' offices.
That's funny.
And that struck me. Like every time I passed a tall building, it was always a medical building.
I don't know, man. The Panorama Tower is over 250 meters,
In Miami?
85 floors in Miami, followed by Aston Martin Residences,
Yeah, right.
uh, 66 floors, Four Seasons, 70 floors. So, I mean, they got some tall buildings, but it's all like,
I guess they got
downtown.
some tall buildings. I guess if I'd gone further south, but I mean in the middle of the state,
Oh yeah,
uh,
no. I
no one
don't know
builds
if you
tall.
can. I don't know if they can actually. Yeah, like Brian says, the place is a sponge. I don't know if much of the state can tolerate much of a. You know, it would have
Yeah,
the
I mean
stability of like
the
putting this
hurricane.
up on my
I
hand.
mean, I could go into my entire spiel about why we need to just abandon Florida and let the sea take it.
I don't know. Texas first.
Now, well, but here, the problem is Florida is the flattest state in the union and also the lowest in in relation to sea level. So, as
Mm,
just a slide aside, another piece of news: we have now hit irreparable melting
mm,
uh,
mm-hmm.
in the Arctic. As the sea level rises, Florida's fucked.
I
I don't want to spend any more money saving that place, man.
I don't know if I want to live forever, but if I could, it would be to witness the erection of the Al Gore statue in the honor of the guy that we should have listened to, who basically demonstrated 100% of what the planet looked like 100 years later.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
so basically, American healthcare is rat shit. It shouldn't be for profit. The insurance racket for me is legalized racketeering.
it is.
I mean,
It,
it's
it's
really
it's
just the
whichever gang, and
corporate
of course it
legal version
changes.
of a guy showing up at your house going, well, it'd be a shame if anything happened to you. Maybe you pay me. I can make sure
Well,
if
I mean,
anything
the
happens to
fact
you,
that
it
you can
goes
go
easy.
now you can go into a hospital, right, which shows itself as in your network, be seen by a doctor, and then be hit by a bill for tens of thousands of dollars. And
Right.
why? because the doctor wasn't in network.
Yeah.
The hospital was in network. The hospital employs the doctor, but the doctor wasn't in network. This has reached a point of insanity where this has to stop. And I've heard some people be like, "Well, what are you going to do with all those jobs? Anything else? Anything else?" Hey,
Yeah,
you know what? We keep on complaining about the fact that the service industry it doesn't have enough workers. Guess what? Here you go.
There is no, I don't have anything nice that I can say to summarize that part of it. I have been hearing that fucking bullshit since way back before the ACA was passed. And I had that shit come at me from people on the left, man. I had old school Democrats saying, "Well, you realize if we destroy the for-profit industry for insurance, we're going to have so many people out of a job." And my answer to them was, "Aren't there any fucking call centers at fucking Comcast? I mean, I don't understand. What the fuck? You can do the same fucking bullshit. You can go sell cars. You can sell insurance. You can sell cars. You can answer the fucking phone at fucking insurance company. You answer the fucking phone at the cable company. Fuck you." There's no highly skilled, specialized fucking person involved. Everybody learns their bullshit. Go sell fucking real estate. Drives me fucking crazy. It's the same fucking skill set. In Florida, right.
Oceanfront property soon.
next to Brian's forthcoming oceanfront property. Here's the other thing that pisses me off is that I tried to keep all of my operation within the same health system. Like, I haven't even fucking entertained any other provider if it wasn't Spectrum Corewell Health, right? Because it's all neatly contained in the same app and the billing is all in one place. And then I still get these fucking extra other fucking bills from entirely separate fucking entities that have rented out their little square footage of fucking turf in the fucking emergency room. That shit is ridiculous. It's like no other industry works that way. Nothing else works like that. You don't, let's do the car. You don't go buy a car and all of a sudden after you leave the lot, there's a bill from the guy that did the floor mats.
Well, I mean, they're Ford and BMW and Mercedes are working on changing that, but
it's wild. It's just
I think in the end,
unreasonably crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's gonna die out sooner than they think, because I feel like as they keep on trying to press this subscription model for everything, this miniaturization of everything, even in the service industry. I want to point, this is something that's happening in the service industry, right? Of employers trying to get around paying their employees more, and also having the price be upfront, right, of what it costs for them to maintain their whatever their salary is. I mean, here's the thing. I make a middle-class salary doing my job.
In most
for
cities.
a little bit longer.
In Nashville,
for a little bit longer. I make a middle-class salary doing my job. But in all honesty, that price doesn't get passed on to the patrons at my restaurant. And you ask, how is this possible? Well, my restaurant operates at a ridiculous loss, right? Which is fine by my employers, because the way that they're set up, they just pass that loss on to their partial owners as a tax write-off. They don't mind that that my restaurant operates on a loss. They'd like, I mean, on one hand, they'd be like, well, maybe I'd like it if you made a profit. I'm like, well, these are the things you'd have to do to make a profit. Well, oh no, we're not going to do that. So, but for servers, right? I have a huge problem. Like, now I've been confronted with this in the past 48 hours of now having to go back in and find servers, because it's been requested that I go set up X number of interviews for in between yesterday and Friday of next week. There's no one applying. And right. I'll tell you why. Is because in Tennessee, it's $2.75 an hour plus tips.
Mm-hmm.
No one's working for that. And so some employers have tried to offload this, right? They've tried to build in a service fee that gets applied at the end of your meal, right? Which I'm not averse to, but the problem is that they haven't set it up so that customers understand, by the way, whatever you pay, you're going to pay 20% on top of that for your server. Now, some places I know have done this, and they did it because the only way that they could keep the servers that they needed was to ensure that they were getting paid.
But that I don't see that conversation going well with the customer.
And that's the problem, is it doesn't go well with the customer, because the customer gets their bill and they say, okay, so I see what I paid here, right? And then I see a 20% fee, and then I see the tax on top of, because again, there's an extra tax in Tennessee on food and alcohol. There's one level of tax on food you buy in a restaurant, and another level of tax that gets added on top of that for buying alcoholic drinks, right?
Just to keep
So,
it simple,
right.
like
No,
conservative.
I've had to have this argument with tables, because one of the problems that I have in Nashville is that if you're used to going out to dinner in, say, Franklin, which is in Williamson County does not slap on an extra 2.5% on these sorts of things. Davidson County, where I'm at, Metro Nashville, does slap on an extra 2.5% sales tax on these things. And for the most part, that's because we get a lot of tourist business. And technically, for those of you who visit and for some reason want to abuse yourselves this way, you can actually ask the state, if you are an out-of-state visitor, for your sales tax back. That is an option. You can fill out a form with your itemized receipts and submit that to the state, and they will give you whatever, like the 100 or 50, 75 or whatever amount of dollars back after probably about 4 months.
Yeah, they know nobody's going to do that.
Yeah, well, no, people do. People do, especially people who buy cars and such.
Oh, wow.
Things like that, for whatever, because again, if you buy a car and you're out of state in Nashville, right? That's you have the sales tax, then the Davidson County tax. Then
I know.
Then you have the luxury tax.
I actually entertained. So
you ended up buying a car explicitly in Michigan to avoid Tennessee tax, if I remember.
Well, I looked at, could I go to the state where my job is based? Could I go to New Hampshire, because they don't have any, and come out ahead, or could I go back to Tennessee and come out ahead? And once you figured in all the travel, it was a wash. So it would have been a wash just to make a point. And while I tend to typically go for the things that still make a point, that just wasn't feasible. But I did briefly entertain having, so when Jessie was looking at the vehicle that she leased, when the comparison of lease versus purchase was taking place, there's an extra tax, a tiny amount of money, like $17, that it would have cost to get it in Franklin. And I actually entertained requesting, if she were going to buy it, requesting that it be transferred to Crest Honda in Nashville so that I could fuck Franklin for $17, because fuck Franklin.
Right. Williamson County can burn and Nashville will rejoice.
We didn't have to go there, but I want to call back to Olivia's comment here. You could literally pay me the same, take my health insurance away as a deduction, triple my Medicare tax, and then I'd still come out ahead. And that's the reality.
And that's the truth of of the entire United States. If every employee, because we already have to pay payroll tax to Medicare,
right?
So my Medicare tax, I believe, would go up to something like $80 a month, which would be about a wash for me, because I have a I don't know. It's this weird in between where it's I have a relatively low deductible but I get no help for a lot of stuff. Like my psychiatrist appointments. I'm still shelling out a lot of money per appointment right now until I hit my deductible, which I'm rapidly approaching.
Uh-huh.
So you get no help, and then once you get there, you'll get some help. But anyway, but I mean that this is the stupidity of it. Like just like in the restaurant industry, where we're playing around with all these different fee structures, healthcare has been doing this for years.
Well,
And it just
yeah.
keeps on getting worse. And
It
the
sounds like
problem
some
is,
shit they stole from hotels, man. Every time I've ever done an event, there's a service fee on top of the rental for a venue, and it's usually 22% nowadays. Um, and it's basically so they don't have to pay their staff themselves. They make the client do it. Essentially, that's what happens. And
instead of just
if
putting
you're
the
doing geek cons like me, and you don't have a whole fuckload of food going on, you don't really have servers, so there's really nobody to pay, and they just get to pocket the extra. So it sounds like the hotel model, but the difference is that in the contract for a hotel, they tell you a lot of times that it's plus plus, and they tell you what plus plus means, and it means plus tax plus service, and they make it very clear. And I doubt restaurants are doing a good job of doing that.
no, because I mean, most of these people have been getting away with abusing their employees
Oh yeah,
violently for years. And that's one of the problems that the restaurant industry has is there is not only a reality but also the growing perception of servers get abused. And there's some things have changed during the pandemic, post pandemic. As somebody who worked through the pandemic in a restaurant, I can definitely tell you that my perception and my just observation in general of the behavior of patrons has changed. The behavior of management, especially upper management, towards what they're looking at in terms of the restaurant has changed. The behavior of suppliers. I mean, most people don't realize, like your favorite super secret chili at whatever that restaurant is Cisco brand chili with maybe some cumin added.
right.
Right.
It's a twist on a very common commodity.
Right. I mean, it's like what, like so much of the stuff that you get in a restaurant is made by US Foods or Cisco, in a factory, and it gets delivered to your restaurant because they don't have time. I mean, if you want like a home cooked, thought out meal, that's gonna average you about $100 a plate in reality, because the amount of time and the amount of people that it takes to do that, and what you have to pay those people to do that. Right.
Well,
there's not a bunch of Guatemalans making your food. There might be some Guatemalans, but their Guatemalans speak English.
So what Olivia said about triple my Medicare deduction or whatever. Like, honestly, if you took the $72 a week in my case that I have deducted for insurance and just moved that shit over to the government, it would be more than what was described by the two of you just now. But you could just do that and the whole system would improve, because the government would look at whoever the fuck this is and they would say, okay, so your price for wheeling a cart in and attaching electrodes to this son of a bitch and zapping him for 2 seconds in a procedure that lasted for 5 minutes was $660. You can fucking get bent. That's what the government would do in that equation. And then the price adjustment that takes $200 off the top that my insurance gets, because what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then the insurance paid $100 and I'm still stuck with $360. That shit would go down. What I'm stuck with would go down. So even if you took what everybody pays for their premium and you made it into paying the government for that premium, the prices of bullshit would go down.
Yeah. I also want to point out ambulance fees are one of the things that when I'm talking to people in other countries, that's one of the most shocking places where people are like, "Wait a second, so you pay tax dollars to fire departments, which also supply your emergency medical service?" Yes.
Kind of.
So if they show up and put you in the back of their ambulance, that's an ambulance that was paid for with your tax dollars.
If
Yes.
it's their ambulance. Because it could be private.
Well, no, I mean, generally speaking, if it's the fire department, it's owned by the fire department EMS. It's owned by the fire department.
In some places.
Oh, really?
I mean,
again, this is the bullshit. Why does a public service have a private fucking ambulance?
As far as I know,
by public employees.
I've never been to a city that didn't have private ambulances working in tandem with emergency services. Here in Grand Rapids, I don't think the fire department has ambulances. I think they have EMTs, but I don't think they have takeaway. I think it's all private.
Okay, well, I mean, here
Nashville
Fire Department has ambulances.
I know they do. Right? I went in one time, and I felt like a shitty person for not really being able to afford to pay them the bill. But at the same time,
but that's the thing is, they're like, wait a second, you pay taxes. Why is there a bill? That doesn't make any sense. And for those who've never ridden in an ambulance, I've ridden in an ambulance. Lucas has ridden in an ambulance. Not in the fun way. The bills for ambulances, which by the way, ridiculous. A lot of insurance policies don't cover ambulatory service. Mm-hmm. Range anywhere from as low on the low end of like $700.
That's where
to the high end of typically around or really actually the mid end of about $3,500 to, God forbid, you had a really life-threatening emergency, at which point you could be looking at $6,000 to $7,000. Because, by the way, while you're in the ambulance, the medicines that they're giving you are also not covered.
And marked way up.
Yeah.
Oh, it's more expensive because it was mobile.
The fuck it was.
Okay. Yeah. So, God, the fire department bothers me to no end. The systems, fire department are entirely volunteer based. We don't pay and fund these people properly like the police.
That needs to be an entirely other show. For those of you who've never watched it, there's a wonderful YouTube channel called Fire Department Chronicles. Well, and it's hilarious.
I asked the question that I've been sitting on for several weeks now. I finally sent that email this evening before the show to the city manager, city clerk, copied the mayor, and somebody else. Who the fuck did I copy? I copied somebody else. Anyway, I asked the question. Hey, I'm just curious, are there any other departments or operations in the city of Grand Rapids that have a charter-based legal guarantee of a minimum budget like the police department enjoys? Perhaps fire, public works, anyone? Just let me know. Because I already know, I'm pretty sure the answer is no, nobody else. No. So the fucking cops have a protected minimum. I think it's 32% of the budget. 32.
Holy fuck.
And they're over that number right now, and the fire, as far as I know, and they may surprise me, but yeah, I don't think fire's guaranteed jack shit. So yeah, Olivia pointed out gracefully skipping over my typo disaster. You're good. It's all live on the fly. Everybody can't type perfectly, but it's okay. But when David's doing the show by himself and he's 2 hours in, that's the time to give him typos just to fuck with him because he's drunk. So let's move on. Let's dovetail into the.
Speaking of which, I'm working my way there as best as I can.
Very closely related topic of banking, because that's been a thing.
I want to point out, for those of you who watched last week's show, I kind of presaged this, didn't I? I kind of presaged that shit was coming down the pike. And here we are.
First of all, those of us that had to live through adult life in the housing crisis, just like, can someone pass us an extra shot? Because it's extremely traumatic to be a grown-up right now if you were a grown-up then.
Let me see.
And I think everybody here in the
since
audience
I turned
currently
18,
and here.
how many market shocks have I lived through? 9/11, 08, and now this.
Yeah.
You know what? Graceful this, Brian. Okay.
So I don't really know what to make of this right now. I'm extremely anxious about where we are
Oh
because
no,
I don't
we are deep in the shit. We are
I don't trust
deep
this not to be
in the
a big
shit.
issue. But if you've been living under a rock, Silicon Valley Bank, which was a somewhat contained, specialized bank, went tits up based on a run on the bank, inspired by shady shit being done by leadership that shook the confidence of their people, and the loss of some investor support or something. That's what I take away
No,
from it.
okay. So here's what happened. So you
Though I
put
have
money in
been
the
reading a little bit too much of some Reddit threads that
yeah. Okay. So
are
here's what
filled with
happens.
experts.
You put money in the bank, right? You put money in the bank. And in a simple idea of banking, the bank takes your money and they pay you an interest rate on your deposit. And the reason they pay you an interest rate is because they turn around and loan out the money at a higher interest rate.
Yep.
That pays for the employees and also to
the money's
generate
not really sitting in the bank all the time.
generate profit.
It's a Wonderful Life, an excellent
Yeah.
cinematic education on how banking works.
So I mean, in a very simplistic idea of how banking is supposed to work, you put money in the bank. The bank, ideally before the 70s, gave you an interest, gave you money on the money that paid you a percentage of what you deposited back to you.
A
In exchange,
noticeable percentage, unlike now, where you look at your interest and you're like, the fuck?
well, I mean, now they don't even offer it for most accounts. They don't even offer interest anymore. It's just a place for you to park money.
Yeah, I think my credit union experience has been very similar. It's fucking dog shit, just like the regular commercial banks is in this regard. They call it dividends, and I think I just turned 45. I've been banking, since 17. Most of it at credit unions, whatever the math is on those years. I've probably seen a grand fucking total of $10 in dividends.
So my parents, my dad, because he was a veteran, put us into USAA. If you are a spouse of a member of USAA, if you are a member of USAA by virtue of service in the U.S. military, if you are a spouse of a deceased member of the military, you still receive the same thing, and they will send you a dividend check, right, for having USAA insurance. I, as the child of a veteran, don't receive a dividend check, but they have a similar sort of thing. But again, it's always like $5,
Yeah,
right?
it's fucking ridiculous.
So, but the basic
these are the
formula
good guys. The credit unions are the good guys in the equation, if there can be any.
The basic formula of banking is supposed to be this: you put money in the bank. The bank pays you a small interest rate for putting your money with them, and then they turn around and loan out that money for more than the interest rate that they give you. That lets them pay their employees and also make a profit. Right? That's the simple form of banking. The reality is, banks need to make more money faster. So what SVB did is actually a really common thing. Your insurance company does the same thing. Your insurance company takes your premium and they invest it, right, to make more money. This is actually, if you look at the history of insurance, that's what banks are actually copying is the insurance industry. The insurance industry has always done this of taking your money and investing it to generate even more money and then paying out claims out of the more money that they made investing your money than they did, just letting it sit in a pot, right? Credit unions, the reason they pay out dividends, the reason they do that is because technically they aren't necessarily as heavy on the investing side, right?
Right.
They're more like the original formal mode of banking, of you park your money here, we pay you a little bit of money, and we loan out your money. What SVB did was this: SVB said, we have a lot of money in our accounts. We've loaned out a lot of money, but we also have a lot of money on hand. We need that money to work in order to generate more money. So what we're going to do, and SVB's credit, they didn't go out and do anything crazy, right? They went out and bought government bonds. They went out and bought T-bills, which is a pretty standard practice, right? The problem is T-bills are subject to changes in interest rates, right? The higher the Federal Reserve, pumps up the interest rate on what's called prime rate, the lower the value of that T-bill, right? Especially if you bought that T-bill at a lower interest rate. So most of these T-bills were bought at dog shit interest rates.
Yeah.
Which then made, once the government issued new T-bills, new treasury bonds with higher interest rates, it made the interest rates that were on these T-bills were shit, right? Because part of the value of that T-bill is I can sell it to you like it's currency plus a little extra because it has an interest rate attached to it, right?
Right.
When this matures, you'll make a little bit of extra money. So what SVB did is they took a bunch of their money and they bought treasury bonds at the prevailing interest rate. Now, as the Fed raised the interest rate, these bonds that are held by SVB now no longer are marketable, right? They have to sell them at face value or less. So now we have a problem because SVB is supposed to have X amount of money and X amount of capital available to it. So in other words, SVB should have been able to, Silicon Valley Bank should have been able to turn around and sell those T-bills on the open market and get its money back to cover its depositors' accounts. But then it couldn't, right? And people caught on to this. Now, SVB could have covered most of its depositors' accounts. But the problem is that you don't want to be the last person left in a game of musical chairs with your bank.
Yeah.
Right? This is what causes runs on the bank. What causes runs on the bank is that I don't want to be the last person who shows up to the bank and the bank is like, I can't pay you any money. I don't have any money on hand. I spent your money and now I don't have any left. Now, what banks do in response to this is typically go out and invite new investors to come in and buy shares in the bank and generate and put new money back into the bank, which is what SVB was doing. But the problem is that, just like I said, raising interest rates has a tendency to fuck over a lot of things, right? Especially when you're doing it as fast as the Federal Reserve is currently doing it to fight inflation, which it does have to do. But the problem is like, as I put in one Reddit post, it's like using a sledgehammer to fix a grandfather clock that's already in 120 pieces on the floor. It's not, the way the Fed is doing this is not a good tool. It's not their fault. I mean, it's not their fault. Like I said last week in the show, Senator Warren was right to beat up on Chairman Powell, and Chairman Powell was also right to be like, "What the fuck do you want me to do, bitch? I got one tool in my toolbox."
Right.
Yeah. So what has happened with SVB and these rises in interest rates is that a lot of banks, not just SVB, Credit Suisse.
That's the most recent. And then there was Signature Bank in New York in between.
Signature has already been taken over. Credit Suisse is being backstopped by the Swiss government at this point.
Yep.
First Republic is going to go down like a sack of potatoes. Uh, Signature is already down. It's going to go down the list. I'm kind of looking. I think once we get to the 20%, like 20% in T bills, is when it'll maybe hopefully start to slow down. But anyone who has more than 20% of their deposits in T bills, I think, is at high risk of going down. They're at
So
high
the
risk.
the real worry, of course, is having this spread into the larger scope of the economy.
Oh, it's already there.
Like in a
we are already there.
like in a big way, like in a '08 kind of way.
Oh no,
And
if this goes down the way that it's shaping up to, it will be worse than '08, because the problem is the federal government has already fucked up. It is already fucked up massively by backstopping SVB. They should have, the warning should have gone out. And here's how the Fed
well,
and the federal
and
government looked
I
at
don't
it.
know if I'm up on what the feds have done aside from pay out the FDIC
Oh
insurance.
no, all the deposits have now been backstopped.
Oh, that. See, early on, the going wisdom, and I still think it's the wisdom, was fuck that.
Yeah, apparently that Biden switched on that, and because he was afraid of a massive panic. And here's the problem. And I said the same thing in '08, and I'm going to say the same thing now. The problem with bad capitalism will not be fixed until the fire burns it out. The fire has to burn.
Yeah.
What fixed the Great Depression was we let the fire burn. Hoover was an asshole because he didn't take care of the people who were affected by the fire. But the fire had to burn. Of all people, Reagan let in the 80s on Black Friday, let the fire burn.
Mm-hmm.
And when the fire burns, it cleans out the dead growth. That when forest fires happen, they are a necessary part of an ecosystem.
That's a good
They
point.
burn out the dead growth. And the problem is SVB was dead growth. SVB was a parking lot for crappy for just hoarding money, right? For companies that weren't Roku, right? Oh, is Roku a genuine contender in the streaming wars?
Fuck no.
No. But how much
Roku's
money did
trash.
Roku?
Let's get
How much
real.
how much money did Roku have parked in SVB? More than $30 billion fucking dollars.
Ugh, fuck them. And the government gave it back to them?
Yeah.
No, fuck that. Roku should have died. Roku
Exactly.
should have died on their fucking own.
The
It's
fire
garbage.
has to burn. The fire has to burn, and it has to clean out the bad investments.
Roku is
And yes,
garbage
people-
anyway. That's not the subject at hand, but goddamn,
Like-
what a piece of shit.
No, like
Low budget ass
again.
fucking
Old
playstool looking motherfucking piece of shit.
in '08, if we had let the fire burn, it would have taken down. First of all, insurance in America would look radically differently right now because the fire would have burned out dozens of insurance companies. Would have wrecked them. We should have single payer, and the reason we should have single payer right now is because your insurance company should have gone bankrupt in '08.
And the only viable solution, the only man standing, would have been single payer Sam, Uncle Sam, that is.
Bingo. The problem is that these organizations keep on running to the government saying, if you don't give us money, we will have to fire millions of people. And the answer is you have to fire millions of people. The fire has to burn. Yes, the problem is that the money at the top keeps on stopping the inevitable and necessary economic restructuring of America.
That's I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's a good point.
The problem that we keep on running into is, yes, SVB should have been allowed to burn. Credit Suisse should have been allowed to burn. First Republic needs to be allowed to burn. Signature needs to be allowed to burn. these banks that made bad. And here's the thing: I want to make this very clear. A lot of people want to be down on these banking organizations, and the irony is, for what they're being punished for, they did what was the sensible thing at the time. Was it a good long-term understanding of economics? No. No, it wasn't. Because interest rates could not stay that low.
Yeah.
It could not stay that low. It was at least in terms of long-term, it was a bad investment. And this is one of the reasons we keep on running into problems in America, is because we're not looking long-term. Why are the Chinese beating us on technological developments and investments in infrastructure?
Anything, it comes down to discipline. There's discipline,
but long-term
in the culture.
Discipline.
Oh,
the problem is that when you have an investor show up at your company and say, I will give you the money to make a multi-million-dollar startup.
Yeah. Olivia's riffing a little on what you were saying earlier, not to be heartless, but we've had record-breaking open jobs for a while now and no one to fill them. Some evening out of the workforce with some closures might not be the worst. And that makes me think about the tech bubble thing, the dot-com bubble thing, the idea that we shifted to this place where people with advanced degrees in coding ended up fucking serving fries. And you know what? That wasn't even their fault. So if it worked for them, why can't it work for some bankers? Fuck these fucking people.
Well, I mean, it isn't even the bankers. You have to remember that the main problem that they're afraid of is deflation. That's what they're really afraid of. So to clarify the difference between inflation and deflation. I know I've talked about this on the show, but I'm going to give us all a quick recap. Inflation is...
You do that, I'm going to grab another.
Fair enough. Inflation, assuming it keeps... Okay, there it goes. Keeps up. Inflation is money grows, the economy grows, everything is moving, everything is getting bigger. And as it gets bigger, more money has to be injected into the system. And as more money gets injected into the system, costs have to steadily rise. Why? Because, well, there's more money. Like the value of that dollar that you have is not worth as much. Not necessarily a bad thing. As long as it's moderated, right? Which is traditionally what we've had. Recently, we've had this big influx of money. And one of the problems is that it's not from consumers, right? Consumers have been restraining themselves. It's from people with too much money spending even more money to compete with other people with more money for smaller and smaller slices of what they view as valuable assets: real estate, healthcare, IT. They're competing for sectors that they think are high value, and the more that they fight with each other in that space, the more they drive the prices up, right? So basic services like healthcare, right, all of a sudden keep on going up and up and up and up and up. Your ability to get a house keeps on going. The price for entry into that market keeps on going up and up and up and up and up and up, and that drives up inflation because someone goes to their employer and says, I want to buy a house. I can't buy a house because you don't pay me anywhere near enough to afford a down payment. I need more money. So at that point, wage growth does affect things, but wage growth is a response to something else that's happening, which is the bidding up of basic commodities like housing. So the real problem of inflation doesn't lie with the wages. It lies with people bidding up the price of necessary goods and services. Deflation happens when all of a sudden that dollar is worth more, right? So in the Great Depression, because no one had any money, the value of your dollar skyrocketed. We talk about, our great-grandparents would talk about points like where a candy bar was a nickel. A candy bar was not a nickel in 1910. Candy bar was 50 cents in 1910. It's closer, a little bit closer today. It was a little bit, maybe about 45 cents, 30 cents. But it was more. It was more. And then after the Great Depression, all of a sudden, a candy bar is worth a nickel. Why is a candy bar worth a nickel? Because there's no other money in the system, right?
Yeah.
I'll take what I can get. And deflation is bad. And it's very bad. And here's why deflation is very bad. If you own a home, you took out a mortgage. That mortgage is for what? $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, right? Businesses take out loans, right, to fund themselves, to the tune of nowadays $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. If deflation happens, and that business can no longer charge customers a rate which makes that loan payable, right? Then, and by the way, we've been seeing this happening among the wealthy for a while now. Right now, a lot of tenants and landlords are avoiding payments, right? And the reason they're avoiding payments is because they don't have enough money. Because the bottom is kind of falling out of the commercial real estate market. Number one,
Just a little.
But number two, like tenants are looking around being like, why should I pay my landlord for space that I don't use, right, anymore, right? Because my employees are remote. So I'll just default on the contract and walk away with whatever the penalty is. Which again leaves the landlord in a bad spot of, I own money on this loan.
It also gets even worse than that, David. I learned last week when I took the day off for my birthday on the last show day, last Thursday. Before my birthday dinner with the family, I had a little meetup. I've been doing these beer summit powwows with local developers that I meet at city meetings because I'm trying to form a coalition of unified feedback between neighborhood activists and common interest of developers, which, believe it or not, exists. And one thing that we were talking about was this glut of empty commercial property. It sounds easy, and I changed my opinion after listening to this guy tell me. It sounds easy to take an office tower and convert it into apartments.
No, it is not.
But it's not.
Exactly. It's not.
You don't have you don't have individual restroom spaces. You
plumbing,
don't have emergency
electrical.
Egresses. There's just a shitload of stuff. He said in a lot of cases, it's cheaper to blow it up and knock it down.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I also want to point out like the variances for commercial versus residential. Like, in a time to sell this for residential development. Yeah, but you've got to tear down what's there. Because like the variances that are allowed for commercial work, such as soundproofing, right? If you're in a commercial space, it's annoying, but not essential to your life experience that you not hear people walking above you.
Yeah, right.
If you're in an apartment and you have to hear the neighbor above you all the time,
I humbly submit pretty much every apartment I've ever been in personally to live or visited people, it's awful usually. So,
but again, that's ironically, that's improved soundproofing between floors.
Yeah.
As opposed, I'll be honest, most of us don't notice it in a commercial environment because it's filled with people, and everyone's doing stuff, and none of us notice it. I'll be honest, having been in an empty building before, it is freaky as fuck to hear the people above you all the time that are still there.
Let's keep the show rolling with your next one. I'm saving the big one for last, but
you want to do my next? All right, I know we're running out of time. The moral of the story is, I just want to finish this. The moral of the story is this: we're in a bad spot with the government trying to backstop SVB and First Republic. And the First Republic will be next that they'll try and backstop because we're draining the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation super fast. And the problem is that this contagion is not going to stop spreading because Chairman Powell only has one tool in his toolbox, which is to raise interest rates.
Right.
That's the only thing that he has. And he is right to be like, we have to stop inflation. 11% is way out of bounds. That's way out of bounds. And he's like, I only have one tool to stop this because Congress can't act. And he is correct in his thinking of, I need to force a recession. From the tool that he has at hand. Now, does it make it any less macabre? Does it make it any less awful? No. But he is going to crash the economy. The problem that he can't avoid is that these banks stupidly relied on, and I'll be honest, I was one of the adherents to this idea of things will be this way forever before 08. I was an adherent to the idea like, no, we're in a cycle of very steady, consistent, perpetual growth.
Well,
and then
before
08 hit,
you also
like,
thought being a Republican was a good idea. So
yeah, probably. No, I was already on my way out of that, but like after 08, I'm like, oh no. I was wrong. I was so fucking wrong about how this shit works. Oh my God.
Wrong.
No. And the problem is Chairman Powell only has one tool in his tool belt, and this contagion is going to continue to spread. Chairman Powell, he was like, oh, 3.5 million jobs should solve the inflation problem. He's going to get a lot more than 3.5 million jobs out the door. If the FDIC cannot cover this contagion, and I don't think that there's the political will in Congress to cover the number of regional banks that are going to fold. Right now, there's been a rally on Credit Suisse, but that's mostly because it's not an American bank. It's a Swiss bank, and the Swiss government is stepping in to save them. And the Swiss government has a very good reason to treat them differently. The FDIC and the Fed and Congress do not have the money to backstop First Republic and all those other banks that are over 20% leveraged into T-bills. We are headed
Credit Suisse has
for
like a whole bunch
ride, boys and girls.
Doesn't Credit Suisse have a whole bunch of like shady, reckless shit already in
Oh
there?
yes, yes.
Right.
I'm going to be very clear. Every Swiss bank has a long history. Has a long history of shady shit. It's all shady. That's how they made their money, right? Be like, oh, that's a nice watch. Is that a Star of David? Oh. That was someone's tooth, wasn't it, you fucker?
Well, speaking of which, let's talk about Israel. And this is mostly a you educational excursion because I'm just at a point of numbness. I get told that I'm anti-Semitic all the time because I fucking hate Israel. And
I don't fucking hate Israel. I fucking hate
people
Likud.
People are ignorant of the idea that you could hate a nation and not hate its people.
Here's the thing. I don't hate Israel. I fucking hate Likud, and I fucking hate Shas. And which, by the way, these are political parties inside Israel. I'm
just not willing to subdivide it. Fuck that place and their free fucking pass on all their fuckery. That's my summary. But there's some specific fuckery going on now with Netanyahu, who's managed to fucking weasel his way back into office.
Oh, weasel his way back in is the right.
Thought that chapter was closed, and now here that fucker is. And let the people in. You explain it way better.
So to give people a little bit of backstory, for the past basically 5 years, Israel has been in complete political chaos. You form a government and then it falls, right? Because they're a parliamentary system, which means you have to have a simple majority to rule. And if you don't have a simple majority, then the government falls and you have to hold a new election. They've been doing elections about every 3 months for 5 years. It's been bad. It's been really bad. And a lot of the reason is this. There are a lot of right-wing Israelis, but the problem is the Trump, if you will, of Israel. It's this guy by the name of Benjamin Netanyahu. And Benjamin Netanyahu is the leader of the Likud party, which is ostensibly close to our Republican Party. They're the main right-wing party in Israel. And Benjamin Netanyahu has done likely some somewhat illegal things.
Just a wee bit illegal.
Wee bit illegal. Like, taking bribes, doing other things. And the thing is, the people on the right love him because he's the strong man, right? He's very Trumpian. He didn't start out that way, but he learned that that's what people were going to respond to, and he has very much adapted the strong man motif of I am the strong man of Israel. And he's normally joined with just like Trump, by religious conservatives and economic conservatives, which is a little bit odd in Israel because economic conservatism is not normally where the populace camps out. But for him, there's a lot of different pieces to this puzzle, which is, most people don't realize that there's two different ethnicities among Jews in Israel, which is Ashkenazi and Sephardi, which are two different species of diaspora that occurred for Jews. One is the Ashkenazi are European Jews, and the Sephardi are Middle Eastern and North African Jews. So there's a separation there too. Which is Netanyahu definitely draws more support from Sephardi than necessarily the Ashkenazi. Even though Netanyahu, as most prominent Israeli politicians is Ashkenazi himself. So the problem is this. Benjamin Netanyahu the runway got cleared for the Israeli judiciary to take him to task for his corruption about 2 years ago, right? Everything got cleared for we're taking you down, buddy.
Like you do.
Yeah.
And I think that was the time when I'm over here going, yes.
Right?
Only to have clear, my dreams crushed.
And to be clear, like Likud is a very, very strongly, at least on a number of points, which is why Lucas is excited. Likud, racist might not be the right word, but whatever the one step below racist is, I don't know how we would define that. Likud is definitely parked on that particular part of Earth. They have set up camp. There are flags. They've put a well. There's sheep wandering around. Families have been raised. They are definitely there.
They've chosen their buff colors and they've built their shelter.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. Like, there are other coalition members with Likud who are all the way over on the other on the side of, oh, no. We are openly racist. We are super, super racist. And Likud is willing to work with them to gain its majority, which pulls Likud even further to the right. Likud on its own are just kind of they're average assholes. With their coalition partners, they're super assholes. And that's one of the things that makes Likud dangerous. It's just like the Republican Party on its own. If it wasn't for the QAnon or like Ted Cruz's or Matt Gates's of their party, Marco Rubio is an asshole, but he's not a super asshole, right? Oh
So
no, Bob, no.
I already took care of it.
Bye, Bob.
We have spam comments. You've arrived when you get right-wing spam bots. So,
to
forwarding a little bit.
Fast forwarding to now. So
Netanyahu
Netanyahu has managed to cobble together a bare coalition again to put himself back in the position of prime minister of Israel. But he still has these looming corruption charges. So Netanyahu gets an idea. He's going to reform the Israeli judiciary to strip it of its independence. Now, I want to be clear. Israel's judiciary is something akin to what I wish our judiciary would be currently, which is it has very clear reasons for current sitting judges have a say in who gets appointed to be a judge. Both parties, both opposition and majority, have a say in who gets to be appointed a judge. The Israeli Bar Association, as it exists, which is not called the Bar Association, it's called something else, gets a say. And they sit down as a council.
I'm going straight to hell for this one, but Bar Association in Israel would get a little confusing.
I'm missing the joke.
Bar mitzvah.
Oh.
I'm gonna pick up the bottle cap I've been playing with.
Yeah, you should.
I'll see myself out. No, anyway. But come on. I mean,
so
it was right there.
So I mean, it's a very multifaceted process to select a new judge in Israel for their judiciary. And
before Netanyahu apocalypse.
And now Netanyahu has now proposed and is now put a bill before the Knesset, the Israeli parliament. It has passed the committee. It has now been presented to the Knesset floor for passage, which basically gives the majority party the power to unilaterally appoint judges. The response in Israel has been
go wrong.
Massive.
Yeah.
As of today, or let me see. As of when was this? I want to see when this was. My internet is kind of hosing up a little bit on me. In case you haven't, if you've seen me like stutter and stop a couple of times, that would be why.
There are people taking to the streets, to say the least.
Well, no, it's gotten worse. When was this? 4 days ago. The reservists, so in Israel, every man and woman on the age 18 has to enlist in the military. You serve your time in the military, and then you are a reservist. There are now reservists marching in the street in uniform against this measure. The Israeli people hold very sacred the idea of the independence of their judiciary. Now, sometimes the judiciary can be utter fucking bastards, especially when it comes to Palestinians, which is part of the problem why we still have an Israeli-Palestinian problem. But this is a step too far for them. And is it
going to do anything though, David? Like, I mean, the symbolic people in the streets situation, I'm getting kind of burnt out on it. Here, Egypt, anywhere in the world, it seems like this exercise happens, minuscule change occurs, and I would expect in Israel these people would see an extreme backlash or a crushing force from the government, and then all be over.
Well, no, but that's the problem, is that when your entire population is also your army.
Fair point.
Yeah.
They're kind of doing that. They're kind of doing that thing that the trailer park patriots think that they can do in America.
Right. And when your entire population is your army, which is the reason those reservists have their uniforms, is they're expected to show up and muster on the village green. They are genuinely expected to do that. As opposed to here.
What do you
That hot
think
chick
the
with,
outcome will be? Do you think he'll back off, or do you think this is
I
headed
think he's
toward
got to back off. I think that
Syria?
there has not been anything like this in Israeli history
Hmm.
of this level of protest. The last time there was anything approaching much less than this, this level of protest was during the Dayton Accords, and the protests were from hard right wing Israelis, which is how Itzhak Rabin ended up with a bullet in his head for trying to make peace with Palestine and create a two-state solution. I mean, one of the things that I think that's occurring to most Israelis, and honestly, if you talk to Palestinians on the street now, this is where it's moved to, which is because of Israel's actions, there is no more two-state solution. There is no more Republic of Palestine. The only solution that's left because of the right wing of Israel and all their fuckery is a one-state solution with Israeli Jews and Muslim Palestinians living in the same country. And that's all that's left. We're like everything else is done. And the problem is that a lot of Israelis are looking at this and saying the only way we're going to get there is with a Brown v. Board decision from the judiciary, because the country, the between the Ashkenazi and the Sephardi, between the conservatives and the liberals in Israeli society, there is so little agreement that they need the court to act as arbiter, and especially
Push
from
people together in common space.
right. And especially from liberal Israelis, what they're looking at is they're looking for that. I would argue that they're looking for that Brown v. Board decision, which says the occupation is simply reality, which the PLO will argue against. But I think, but the thing that is happening in the Palestinian street is this. Right now, you're barring us from settlements. You're having Israeli settlers attack our homes, right? Seize our property, seize our land, even when we're not properly, even when we have deeds from the Israeli government that say that this is our land. Right? I'm an Israeli citizen. I am a Palestinian Muslim. I have a deed that says this is my land. And under Likud, under Netanyahu, under force from the far right wing parties, that deed means nothing. If you're a Palestinian Muslim, and I think the left is looking at the Israeli judiciary and saying, we don't really want. It's a very like two-step situation. The average center to left Israeli does not want unification with Palestine. On the other hand, there's not another option anymore. It's over. It's done, right? The idea of the Palestinian state being functional next to Israel no longer works.
Interesting.
We're now to a one-state solution. That's the only viable option. A two-state solution doesn't work.
What part of this gets me Netanyahu's carcass dragged through the street? That's really the only thing I'm here for.
I mean, here's the thing. Netanyahu is working his way there because Israelis consider the function and form of their government to be very important. It's the thing that separates, like in their mind of the average Israeli, the thing that separates them from the banana republics of Egypt and Lebanon and even to a certain extent Jordan, but definitely Syria, right? Is we're a functioning democracy.
Okay. Yeah.
And now you're taking an essential element of that functional democracy, at which point, I mean, and this is the thing, Israel under Netanyahu has not been a functional democracy, but so many right wingers in Israel
Okay.
who have grasped onto him like a Trump. I
Mhm.
mean, if you had to look for where Trump got his playbook, I would argue that one of the places he probably pulled it from was Netanyahu.
Yeah,
Uh,
makes sense.
and because this guy has been in and out of Israeli politics for a long time. And a lot of different
Long
forces
as I can remember.
rose to, and we should take note too, because a lot of different forces rose to fight him, right? Kadima, other coalitions of parties rose to try and put him down, and they couldn't. They
Yeah.
got close. I would argue under Shimon Peres, not Shimon Peres, under Sharon, not Shimon Peres and General Sharon are two different people. Sorry, um, but Sharon, who was he was the general who saved Israel during the 6 Day War, was like, "Nuh-uh. No, I didn't fight a war to save Israel to have it turn into a Nazi state."
Mhm.
He's like, I fought and killed Arabs. I fought and killed Palestinians. That doesn't mean that these people who are living in this place are my enemy.
Yeah, that's a good.
And he tried his best to, and unfortunately, he suffered a stroke and was incapacitated as a leader. And the person who tried to replace him was what's weaker than what's weaker than like half baked Earl Grey tea? It's not
That's
not
that's pretty that wow.
yeah.
I hadn't even fathomed that description, but now that exists.
It's
That's a
like
thing.
this is like dirt water. I don't. Ah, ah, ah,
All right, we
uh,
have just enough time left to get into the place where we will probably end up in different spectrums, and we saved
well,
this
this is
for
where we
the
get to yell at each other. This is gonna be
save
fun
this
since
for
I've
the
already been
end,
drinking for a while.
um, so that we could potentially argue a little something. You asked for this. Actually, David wanted to do in our normal happy hour. He mentioned wanting to do the topic of woke. And I said, that's not going to work for a regular happy hour because I'm going to end up getting pissed off at some point and going on a rant about my spectrum of wokeness and
Yeah. Whatever.
so on and so forth. And
Shout out a
so we
cloud,
should
old man.
save it for a real topic. And then the idea came up to do this shamrock of topics. So I am curious if you can explain what in the hell possessed you to suggest this topic. What moved your spirit after you find your lighter?
He knew once I grabbed my titty that I was.
Yes. Well, you were looking around and you're like, pocket search. No. Where the hell did this come from? Because I never got to ask, and I'm curious why you
So
brought
it
it
was a
up.
clip that got posted of an interview with a popular right wing author and
Right.
blogger,
Right.
which I suggested we put up the video. It's a little bit tricky sometimes for us to put up videos, but
Well, especially when they come out of Reddit, it's really tricky on
yeah,
where they got information.
they were they had written this entire diatribe against woke, right?
But she
It's
wrote
like,
a book,
whoa, woke.
right? There's a book about it, I think. Or
Yeah,
is it
they wrote a book about it, and the interviewer asked them, "Could you please define woke?"
yeah.
And
She could
literally,
not articulate it to save her
the
damn life.
author looked at it and was like, "Well, it's this, uh, it, uh," and like literally realized what she was doing. She's like, "This is going to go viral, isn't it?"
Which was the best part. It was
Yeah,
pretty cool.
she been like she knew how badly she'd fucked up. The problem I have with there are two different ideas of woke, right?
Oh, now I
Woke,
can't wait to hear you explain this because who knows? Maybe we'll have one that we both think applies. Go for it.
Right. So woke on one hand is applied to the idea of especially white people, especially white cisgendered normal the majority of the population being aware of things like, oh, I don't have to necessarily fear like the cops shooting me in my car when I get pulled over. I don't have to fear that my name on a resume will be judged differently. I don't have to fear that uh, I will get quizzed about the fact that like this is the name that I go by, but my birth certificate says that it was something different and that I had a different gender. Uh, it's the realization that okay, things work one way for one group of people and a different way for another group of people. And that's not right. It shouldn't be that way. That's one definition of woke. Then you have the conservative definition of woke, which is there is no definition, right? It's a catch-all phrase of fear, right? It is simply literally if the ketchup doesn't come out of the bottle right, that's somehow woke. It is
When SVB fails, that's woke. That was the latest. That was the latest catch-all scapegoat term.
Right. Is all of a sudden because SVB, which had mostly white people and one black member on its board, somehow the fact that it had one black member on its board was woke.
Well, they probably had a DEI department, and that's what set these people off.
Yeah, they had diversity and inclusion department, and somehow that was too woke.
Right.
Woke is this amorphous idea
to them
that somehow you, as a white evangelical Christian, are being cut out of something that you weren't going to do anyway, but you've been excluded somehow, even though you haven't.
I would say they also see it not just as an exclusion. The exclusion thing is a space, but I think there's also a space for the use of the term in a pejorative sense toward the left to symbolize people working toward things that hurt their feelings, to go back to the things that we talk about a lot on this show.
Anything that hurts my feelings, anything that makes them feel bad, all of a sudden that's woke. It's a completely vague an idea. It's like, Lucas and I had a common friend who was concerned because there was a Shakespearean company that was doing a show of The Tempest at a museum, and they were having to consult a lawyer about the fact that in Shakespeare, right, the father of the fucking English language,
no big deal.
There are characters who are men, intentionally men in drag, right? And they were having to consult lawyers. And I said, no, they will not do anything. And here's why. They've written the law intentionally vague so that trans and LGBTQ plus people have to live in fear because they don't know when the law is going to be enforced and when it's not. Right? That's part of the purpose of the vagueness of the language in the law.
You're right.
Is we can just apply it to people we don't like.
Right.
So
I think that estimation of the right wing definition is probably correct. I think you see two definitions, one on the left, one on the right, and I have settled very comfortably into four definitions of woke. The first, and this is where I'm going to get preachy and be cranky and shake my cane at the sky. The first is the real fucking definition.
Is Missouri a state?
And what?
You don't know that Simpsons joke?
Oh, okay. Springfield has a monorail. That's always the joke I can't ever think of at the right time.
I'll be hanged in hell before I recognize Missouri.
Before I go into this, point out Olivia's comment. I don't know. Maybe I've just been living in a rock for a decade or something. But I never actually heard anyone say woke as a pejorative or by Fox crazy people to describe things they don't like. Anyone say woke is, I think you mean anything but a pejorative. Then yes, you might be under a rock because there's been a lot of white activism claiming wokeness. And so let's rewind back to the place that I think it should have been able to fucking stay. That is the source of most of my frustration. The term woke was hijacked mostly by white women liberals. But the term woke was not for us. The term woke was not for anyone of the complexions represented on this screen. The term woke was a term for the African American community to be aware of the biases and sinister shit working against them, usually in relation to law enforcement. And it hit mainstream popularity in 2014 after the Mike Brown incident. And when that incident occurred was when white liberals noticed it and decided to steal it. So I carry a big chip of resentment on my shoulder for these two trendy terms, woke and Me Too, because they were both stolen from black folks. Woke was stolen from American black folks as a whole. It goes all the way back to the 20s, apparently. I posted a great Vox article that dissects its whole history on our page before the show. Me Too was hijacked specifically from black women in, I believe, the UK, but definitely in Europe, in a drive to get young, or not young anymore, to get black women who had experienced acutely specific sexual exploitation as girls to be able to tell their story and make it a trendy topic. And then white women in the United States, mostly famous, stole that from them and started using it here. Even though, before you interrupt me, even though
I'm just making faces at you.
They had already come up with their own trendy term. They already had time's up. They didn't need to fucking steal Me Too. They mean the same fucking thing. White, wealthy women already had their fucking hashtag. It was called Time's Up, but they just had to take Me Too from black women. And that's why I often accuse that sloppy movement of having a bad catchphrase. And I apply the same to woke because we had a term for what we are doing in the left, and it's called social justice. We didn't need a fucking term for it that was stolen from black folks. We could just say social justice. And the right had social justice warrior as their pejorative way of referring to it. They always only react to what we give them. We gave them woke as a widespread term, and now they're using it against the left as a mocking term. So your definition of what woke means to the left is correct. It's the hijacked version, in my opinion. Woke, historically, stay woke, as its root phrase from the African American community, is the other definition on our side of the fence. Woke is a pejorative on the right. That's its thing. And then there's my fourth rail of the toxic woke piece, because overly activists have decided that woke is going to be their space. I don't want to condemn woke because I respect its roots. I don't want to condemn it on its face, even though it's a poor synonym for social justice. But I will condemn when it becomes this fucking crutch to bitch about every fucking thing and lose sight of the big picture.
Okay, so I want to point out,
when you hear me getting cranky about woke, it's because somebody has decided to go so far off the deep end that I can't fucking get with it.
Okay, so I want to point out that the right has one absolute great tool. Which, by the way, I want to say, Fat Orange Cat and this white stout, this is delicious.
Is that what you switched to?
Yeah. I drained my Tennessee Brew Works Imperial IPA.
Is it in your glass right now? Show it.
Yes.
That is indeed a white stout. That's exactly the same color as Dragon's Milk White.
Yep, it is. It is a white stout. This is fucking delicious. Very nice hints
Speaking of things that
vanilla.
have traditionally been black and turned white stout.
Really? Yeah, you know what? I did kind of walk into that, didn't I? I just,
At least my white beverages come by honestly. I'm back to the shandy.
But no, I mean, the right is really good at taking words and turn like one of the things I bitch at you sometimes about, or used to bitch at you sometimes about. You've gotten better about it. Is identity politics, right? Identity politics didn't exist as a word really on the left, except as a nod to the different objectives sometimes of diverse communities. The right turned that phrase, identity politics, and then they turned it into a pejorative, right? Of you're practicing identity politics. And I want to be clear, the actual wording, identity politics, was not present in the American left, in American liberal movements, until Republicans made it a word, right? They made the phrase identity politics a thing.
Kind of like activist judge.
Exactly, like activist judge. Like they made that a thing. The right is super good at because they understand that for a lot of their population, for a lot of the people who are looking at their politics, catchphrases are what they're looking at. Blah 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 blah. Barbasol. They're looking for an easy to digest catchphrase that they can assign either positive or negative things to, right? Christianity, right? Even amongst the right, we have various different flavors of how this is actually working, right? But we can assign the right manages to assign a positive note to whatever they want to stick that adjective next to, right?
Yeah.
Christian schooling. Well, in Illinois right now, we have an entire issue about the fact that some blatant neo-Nazis have established a neo-Nazi homeschooling network, but they've labeled it Christian, right? And it's very obviously neo-Nazi. It's super duper neo-Nazi. There's no like sort of like no. This is very obviously like Hitler was a good guy. Education. Literally, that's part of the curriculum. Hitler was a good guy. Or just misunderstood.
When you get outside the realm of, hey, maybe the Volkswagen wasn't too terrible of a thing, then you're really starting to get off the rails.
Right. So, I mean,
maybe those rocket scientists that we got to nab, yeah, okay. But, like, no.
Yeah, the Jews at Pitamunda would like a word about those rocket scientists.
Right.
Yeah, they'd like those that survived. Let me clarify that.
You know what? Any port in a storm, and if you need to beat Russia to the moon, any port in a storm.
And we still nearly fucked that up. Jesus Christ. But anyway, back to the point. The right is very good at using language and turning a word for their population. We don't do catchphrases very well, right? Even Martin Luther King, which is, I would argue, if I had to look at the genesis of woke, in the American lexicon, I'm looking at Martin Luther King Jr. Um,
Kind of.
yeah, he's describing the concept. And the main place I find that he's describing the concept is the beginning of the concept is when he describes the moderate American liberal as African Americans' worst enemy in America.
Yeah.
And the reason he's describing that is because they want to build this compromise between people who want to kill or subjugate or do all sorts of awful things to African Americans and African Americans having basic civil rights, participating in society is full and fully emancipated and equal citizens, right? And the place that we keep on ending up in this conversation, because the right is very good at using language, is, well, don't we need to compromise between these two sides? People who want to kill and disenfranchise a whole group of people and people who want full enfranchisement. Well, can't we just like have half enfranchisement and like maybe some killing and some like there is not a good in between those two topics. And Martin Luther King, I think, is the beginning of the idea of in America of the idea that the moderate white liberal is the worst enemy,
Mhm.
right?
I think that's fair. That's a fair statement still today. Here's something that I want to
just
go
to
ahead.
finish the thought, because I had to take a puff of nicotine. The problem that we find ourselves in today, right? The idea of woke, and one of the reasons why I feel whites have moved it into somewhat their category of understanding it is the fact that that realization, right? That half measure ends up with the worst possible fucking result, right? Bringing it back to our previous topic, like one of the things that Israeli Jews are looking at is the worst possible result is that Palestinian Muslims are people, but they are people without rights in our country, right? But we're a functional democracy with a population that can't participate in democracy. Fuck. This is bad. Or live in certain places, right? Most Palestinian Muslims now can't live in Jerusalem, let alone live in their own homes without being attacked by Israeli settlers inside Israel, or land that Israel claims. We've reached this point where whites have to be aware and acknowledge and be awake to the idea that even after the civil rights movement, African Americans are not being treated as equal citizens inside their own country, right? I don't have
that's a true statement.
Yeah. And the entire idea of woke is to say that whites need to wake up to the reality, because the thing is, and Martin Luther King acknowledged this in many of his speeches. Many African American leaders have acknowledged this in many of their speeches, which is that there's two ways to do this, right? Two ways to do this. Either we have some sort of violent revolution where somehow 20% of the population somehow overcomes 80% of the population, which is unlikely. Super unlikely. Or we get white Americans to wake up and acknowledge that the ideals that they say that they're about are not being applied equally across the board. Right? They're not being applied equally to women. They're not being applied equally to African Americans. They're not being applied equally to immigrants. The ideals that you say that you're about are not being applied equally. And as long as they're not being applied equally, you're asleep. You're not paying attention to the fact that what you say you believe in isn't being followed.
Well, the thing is, the hippies were saying "wake up" on protest signs and to each other, well before we were conceived. And we didn't need a hijacked term from the African American community to define any of these things. We didn't need a new way to say social justice. It's a short fucking phrase. We didn't need any of it. And where it really plays out the worst, and this is where I get really fucking cranky, I want to go back to last Saturday when I was downtown for the St. Paddy's parade and festivities. Went to the pub with the group I was riding bicycles with. And one of them was talking about his 14-year-old daughter, white girl, teenager. And he said something about how literally every fucking thing going on with her is woke this, woke that. She's so woke. And he kind of quoted her with his mocking tone. And I said, yeah, but I bet she has no idea what the fuck it means, does she? And he's exactly. She can't articulate exactly what that means. I've asked her to, and she can't tell me. I said, that's what pisses me off. That's the problem, is that you just sat here and you kind of defined what you feel. And that dumbass in that video that you showed me, the right-wing author, her dumbass should have been able to articulate that to the right, woke is the action on the left of destroying traditions and institutions that they feel strongly about. Now, we could debate whether those institutions and traditions are valid, but she should have been able to fucking articulate that. They made her into a boob.
They are not valid.
Right. But she should have been able to articulate that. Ultimately, she's never going to come right out and say, oh, well, it's stuff that opposes white nationalism. But fundamentally, that's kind of where it is.
Well, again, like that's where she's at. She's like, no. I dream of an Aryan god whose balls have sat in a UV box for 1 hour a day, every day, to come to me in my appropriately conservative nightgown. In a canopied bed, likely with African servants fanning me.
So the part that I'm tired of, and the place where I'm siding with your favorite Bill Maher and others that have criticized this idea.
Hell. For those of you who don't know,
something that we need to.
Favorite Bill Maher is sarcasm.
We need to give this bullshit up. We need to get back to specific thoughts, ideas, and catchphrases, and
build one of your own. Like at this point, here's the problem.
Don't need to build one. We had social justice, and it was fine.
Well, no, the problem is it's just like liberal, just
obnoxious.
Just like liberal, the right burned it the fuck down, right? The phrase, the term liberal,
the left burned it down. I tell people I'm liberal, and it's not good enough anymore. What the fuck are you talking about?
No. But it started with the right burning it down, and I remember arguing in front of other Republicans when I worked for the Republican Party that we should reclaim the word liberal, because I'm like, this is the definition of liberal, right? I've made this argument that you're trying to make before. And I've learned my lesson from it. I've made the argument to the RNC, to the state party, to other Republican organizations of, well, what is the literal definition of liberal, right? Then we should say that we are liberals. We should say that we're liberals. But the thing is they knew that their voters, that their core didn't want to hear that, because their core is not liberal. Their core is bigoted, racist, and awful fucking human beings who don't give a shit about whether or not government controls the economy or government controls anything. They really just hate other racial and religious minorities in their in their immediate confines, right? It doesn't matter that they're a national religious minority, like the Roman Catholic Church, which keeps on trying to find a way to be like, so remember what happened to the Franciscans? Remember how the Spanish threw them the fuck out? Hi, Society of Jesus, aka the Jesuits. How you like in North America? Oh, you like it? I'm glad. Could you try not for 5 fucking seconds to interfere in the secular republic in which you exist? Just, if you can do that, that'd be great. And if you can't, by the way, you and the Franciscans are about to have a very pleasant conversation about what happens next.
Look, Cass is here, and he's got an idea for Tennessee that would help simplify some shit. It sounds like the special episode of having a completely new constitution would be a good place for Cass to get involved in the fray. It's good to see you, man.
But I mean, it's
David,
for woke. For woke, the thing that I focus on is this: we understand what it means, and one of the things that makes me mad is that we keep on letting angry libertarians like Bill Maher and
not a libertarian. He's just a
Bill
liberal.
Maher is
Bill Maher just a liberal.
Definitely.
He's just a liberal.
Bill Maher is an avowed libertarian.
He's just not left enough for the continuing wild
Bill Maher
ride.
is not left. Bill Maher is not left. Bill Maher is actually hyper right.
Always been left. He's just not left enough for this fucking bullshit culture that doesn't know what woke means when they say it. And they keep taking over every space and eating all the oxygen in the room.
Lucas, take a page from Trump's book. When someone tells you what they're about and what they're doing, believe them. Bill Maher does not say he's a liberal.
I do believe
Bill Maher says he's a libertarian.
He does not say he's a libertarian. He professes to be center, left, independent, etc. He's critical mostly of Republicans, somewhat critical of Democrats, and he really resonates with most of what I think.
He has repeatedly in the past professed to be a libertarian.
He might have done that when he was trying to live in that middle, when the middle was more like that. But that's not
the problem. Is libertarians have never been middle. Libertarians have.
They didn't always lose their mind. They lost their mind somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s.
No. They've always been nutter. They've always been nutter. They've always.
I don't think it was as bad before the Paul era. I think the Pauls really were the fulcrum of. Okay, they've gone nutso.
These guys, no. If we're going to be honest, the libertarians have always been nutter, and they've always it's always been government shouldn't interfere. Government shouldn't interfere. Government interfere. So what about guns? Right? Oh well. What about guns? Government shouldn't interfere about guns. What about schools? Government should be out of schools. What about social welfare of any fucking kind? Well, government shouldn't touch that either. No, I'm sorry. Bill Maher is he is the horseshoe.
Any of those things. He's pro gun control. He's pro public school. You have no idea. You and so many of his critics won't actually sit and engage with the content and the guests long enough to learn anything. All you want to do is fucking complain. But this topic isn't about Bill Maher. This topic is about dipshits under the age of 25 that show up with no fucking idea what the fuck they're doing here.
Talk about that for a moment. I'll be back.
Sure. So the main gripe that enters in for me is this constant drifting of the left toward no fucking clue. And then the constant vilification of those of us who try to pump the brakes. And that dude talking about his 14-year-old daughter is a prime example of what happens. And everybody's going to say, oh, that's not fair. 14-year-olds just trying to find their way in the world. They don't know anything. The problem is, judging by a lot of the people I'm seeing in the vocal space of the left right now, they never fucking learn anything after 14. And that's the problem I'm having, is I'm looking around seeing a bunch of completely fucking inept groups of people that are more interested in throwing a fit and claiming a title of woke that they have no fucking idea what it means. They couldn't quantify it if their life depended on it. They don't know the roots. They don't know that it's stolen. And they show up and they only want to throw a fit. They don't want to have anything to do with solutions.
Well,
and any solution that comes up is never good enough, never far enough, never fast enough. And they won't listen to the fact that we're all fucking tired of waiting. But guess what? That's the way it's been since Rome. And I don't know how to fix that. What I do know how to fix is the things we can fix. But we can't fix the things we can fix until we can be fucking effective and quit giving the right wing silver platter opportunities to belittle our movement.
I mean, they're going to do that anyway. Like, literally, in case you haven't noticed from the emails that are about to destroy Fox News,
I'm a firm
it doesn't
believer,
matter what you give them.
I'm a firm believer, David, in that if we had the balls to fight like they do, that we would have won and we would continue to win.
Yeah, but it'd be fucking dirty.
We institutionally do not have the guts ever, and it gets
no. You know what? I'm going to be honest. Again, one of my constant things about the coalition of about how American politics works is, like, everyone's like, oh, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party. It's not a true party. We have coalitions in America, right?
Right.
And one of the things that constantly holds the Democratic coalition back all the time is this unwillingness to fight in the streets.
Yeah.
Except in very, 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 very specific circumstances, right? George Floyd was a specific circumstance.
Yeah, but what
really happened? Look at voting rights and gerrymandering, right? We should be rioting, right? Wisconsin should be burning from one end of that fucking cheese eating state to the other, right? But it ain't. Milwaukee ain't forming militias on the fucking village green to go, punk out the Wisconsin Republican Party, right? I want to see some of those cheeseheads like lined, like like the Patriot hat, the 3-corner hat, just like all those like cheeseheads right there.
It already is.
Let's get ready.
It needs a feather.
And Aaron Rodgers we used to trust, except now he plays for the Jets. I'm so sorry. Do they need a darkness retreat? Well, but it's one of the problems with the, again, and Martin Luther King nailed it on the head. He's like, the moderate liberal is our worst enemy, because they don't actually want things to change.
The problem is that I am not alone in being really not okay with being considered moderate. This version of the Overton window that the young leftists want to apply to the world is fucking bankrupt.
And see, the thing is, I don't understand. Like, we're like, I'll be honest. Like, I go hang out with actual fucking communists, and the actual fucking communists will get mad at me and be like, yes, you should get mad at me because I'm a social democrat and I will work with communism. But I understand where you're coming from about, killing capitalism. I understand where your thinking is. But fuck you, no. And I I could still work out at the end of the day, like, all right, listen. Is she dating you, or is this sort of like a uh I could still make that play. But on the other hand, uh if you're dealing with like, I feel like you're talking to a purposely built internet echo chamber. Because when I go talk to these people, and again, I who am technically further to the right than you on other shit, right? And when I go talk to the people who are supposed to be the most radical, ironically, at the end of the day, we can come on to a reasonable, like, at least agreement to disagree. But like, hey, your position isn't bad.
I don't know what it looks like on the ground in Nashville anymore, but I can assure you, in the public space of activism in this city, it's a fucking shit show. The younger
the thing is, you would say the same thing about Nashville back in the day. Like, I feel like you listen, Lucas. I love you know me. I actually love a fight more than you do. I would argue, but I want to win. I think the one place where you and I disagree is this: you want to hold your position, and I want to win. In most of these conversations, and in many of these conversations, like, I will walk away be like, okay, I can give ground on a point to win ground on another point, right?
I don't think you have some fascinating idea that I have any issue with any of the goals at hand. It's not that; it's the ineffectiveness of the body that's doing the most visible work.
Yes, lawyers do. Yes, Cass. Lawyers do love to fight. We'd like to win. We'd like to win.
So what I see in person, you and so many other people like to say, "Oh, it's all just the internet that I listen to." That's not where this is. That's not where this is. I know that
I'm gonna start sending you nails for Christmas, man, because that's apparently what you fucking want.
You seem to think that the only place I exist is online to encounter this. I don't actually encounter this online. I encounter it in person. I live in a town where the response of the leftist activists when candy was mixed with drugs at a BP station by opening packages and remixing shit and put it in Ziploc bags to sell it for cheap to kids. Their response was to go park in front of the gas pumps as a protest and end up getting pissed off that the cops were called. This is the kind of fucking ineffective circular bullshit that the leftists, the younger they get in this country, are doing now. No, because they have no idea how to do shit, and they don't want to listen to anybody older than them because they're so woke, but they can't define it.
See, that's not woke. That's just stupid. There's a difference.
It doesn't matter what you call it. What matters is what they say. And a lot of people in the younger left that I gripe about a lot are analogous to that 14-year-old daughter described by the guy at my table at the pub on Saturday. They don't know what the fuck it is. They don't know why they want to claim it, but it sure is trendy to say so.
I would argue that's the fault of actual, and I hate to say this, democratic socialists and social democrats, which don't like each other, but work towards similar goals up to a point. I would argue that's the fault of actual people who do know, not educating people appropriately. And the thing is, America has actively precluded the idea of teaching people about social democracy, about teaching people about democratic socialism. And again, I always point out to people, I'm not a democratic socialist. I'm a social democrat. There is a significant difference.
David, you can't teach
one
people.
of us likes capitalism, the other doesn't.
You can't teach people that refuse to learn, David. That doesn't work. You can't teach people anything that
Which
don't want
again,
to
I'm gonna harken back to Martin Luther King.
You can cream at a wall.
I'm gonna put Dr. MLK right back in the driver's seat right there, and his entire statement of why is the white liberal our worst enemy? And I would argue that the white liberal is still the worst enemy.
I don't think that's wrong.
Like, here's the thing. Ironically, I'm agreeing with you right now.
It has nothing to do with teaching younger people that can't be taught. Younger people that will not.
I don't think you understand. I'm agreeing with you right now. I'm agreeing with you right now, but not in the way that you think. I'm agreeing with you right now, which is fucked up, which I feel weird about.
Take a shower later. It's okay.
I know, right? I'm definitely going to do that. Well, I'm going to drink some more, and then I'm going to shower. Maybe cry. While drinking in the shower. All
right.
But now, the irony is that, you know, we talked about, like, the idea that the white liberal doesn't understand. And maybe you and I can find agreement on that point, which is, I would argue that there's a lot of white leftists who do understand, who are trying to use the word like it's supposed to be used. And your argument is that there are a lot of white leftists who are using the word in their own made-up way, which does not benefit the cause of social justice.
In a collective way, in an overly collective way. Like, I would go as far as to say we shouldn't be mixing trans and gender and bi and gay and any of that into woke at all. We let the right do it because we gave them this on a silver platter. That stuff is social justice, maybe equity, but it's not woke. Woke should be very compartmentalized to the experience of a black American in this fucking mess of a country. And they hijacked it. And that I will remind people of as long as it takes to kill the buzzword off. Now, I don't know what I'm going to resort to. If woke goes away, I won't be able to say toxic woke anymore. And I don't know if toxic social justice, I guess that still works.
Yeah, that still works because social justice warrior, that's one of the reasons they moved to woke, was because the right turned social justice into a pejorative.
I don't think they moved that way because of that. I think they moved that way because it was trendy. Mike Brown happened. Woke became well known. It got hijacked. Just kind of like all the other bits and pieces. I'm confused. Oh no, what would we do about what?
If woke became,
if I lost my toxic woke,
yeah, what would you do, Lucas? What would you do? What would old man Lucas yell about other than Missouri being a state?
Resort to more wordy definitions, dumb shit that I see holding us back. Just use more words. That's all. Anyway, we are at the top. We can't go any further.
We are so at the top. We have gone way over time
without becoming a full-fledged Oscar film. Do what?
We knew this was going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. Like four topics on the St. Patty's show. Oh,
yeah, no. We like, and by the way, we left off some because next week I'm going to talk to you about the Lab League thing. I'm still pissed.
Dave will be here all by himself next week while I'm on the train.
I will talk about it. I will be angry about it.
Yep. Well, now we got to wrap it up. We gotta tuck it in, put it to bed, and wait a week. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do appreciate it. Spread the word. Tell a friend. Bring a buddy.
Subscribe!
Do that. Share things, like things. And we'll close it off and give you the good farewell. Good night.
Good evening.
And good luck. This is the first time we've done this part still live. We usually just do this goofy shit after the fact. All right. We'll see you on the other side, folks.
Have a good night!